Dani Clayton is the main protagonist of the show The Haunting of Bly Manor. She is a young American woman in London. We first see Dani as she is making her way to an interview. She's clearly a visitor, a tourist, and is not quite yet accustomed to British life, as evidenced by her large backpack, fanny pack, and map. As she's crossing the road, a car passing on Dani's right nearly hits her. As the car passes, we see the first haunting of the show. In the reflection of the window of the passing car, a visage of a man can be seen. He's hidden in shadow, almost in full silhouette, but large circles of light seem to reflect an ominous glow from where his eyes should be. Dani is clearly shaken, but she continues on her way, showing the audience that this is not her first experience with this strange specter. She manages to find her way to Lord Henry Wingrave's office. Lord Wingrave is the one who had placed the ad for a live-in au pair at Bly Manor. During the interview, several things are revealed about Dani's past. She used to be a fourth-grade teacher in America. She has been in England for about 6 months. The interview starts off rocky almost immediately. Her American mannerisms regarding tea and sensibilities for small talk make the conversation awkward. When he offers her tea or coffee, she declines, saying that she has not yet quite gotten used to how tea is served in England. She does, however, see Lord Wingrave pour some alcohol into his own tea. Lord Wingrave immediately cuts right to the catch. He accurately perceives that Dani is hiding something, and that something is off with her. He finds it odd that she's a young foreigner who has arrived in England and is applying for a full live-in position to take care of other people's children in a remote part of the country. To which Dani counters that she finds the listing itself odd, that a full-time position in a beautiful country manor to take care of what he calls exceptional children would be so hard and difficult to fill. She mentions that she's seen this ad when she first arrived in London, and it is still posted here 6 months later. She throws Lord Wingrave's word back at him with, "What is the catch? That is the question." While her initial experience with Henry Wingrave obviously goes rather badly, she later, by luck, runs into him at a bar close by, to which she boldly asks him to toast with her to the most awkward interview of her life. When he hesitates, she quite frankly asks him if he would prefer his drink in his tea, confronting him on his drinking issue. The casual setting of the bar, combined with alcohol, allows the two to be more at ease with one another, and as a result, the conversation is much less confrontational and honest. He confesses to her that the position is hard to fill because the previous governess had killed herself on the grounds, and the story of the 2 orphan children and their dead governess has created superstition amongst the local villagers and has scared away potential au pairs. As a form of quid pro quo, Dani tells Lord Wingrave that she used to take care of a whole classroom full of children, and she loves all her children, but it does take a toll when there are too many to care for. The prospect of 2 children are much more appealing to her. She tells them that she was able to perceive the position being full-time live-in, meaning that there had probably been death involved, to which she cryptically tells him that she understands death and loss. In the next scene, we see Dani returning to her hostel. She calls her mother in America and informs her that she has gotten a new job. Her mother is not too pleased and says something to Dani that Dani responds, "I'm not running away from anything. You know it hurts me when you say that." As Dani is packing up to leave for Bly, she removes drapes that she seemingly had put up to cover up the mirrors in the room. And as she's leaving out the door, she glances at the reflection in the mirror, and it becomes clear why she had covered it up in the first place. The bespectacled ghost appears and glares at her from the mirror. She turns away and leaves. Now, I have broken down Dani's introduction scene because it reveals a great deal about her character in such a short amount of time. Dani is very sweet and kind, but she's also very awkward and quite strange. She doesn't quite fit in with the British yet, which makes her even more socially awkward. She clearly loves teaching and is a natural caretaker, but is currently all alone in England with not even a friend in the country. Dani is also quite beguiling. She seems quite harmless, but it is clear that she's hiding a dark past. She's been in England for 6 months, but is still moving around from hostel to hostel like a nomad. Like she's running away from someone or something. Dani is also not a passive person. When provoked, she will respond in kind. She doesn't hesitate to respond to Lord Wingrave's accusatory tone or to call him out for his alcoholic behavior. The show proceeds with Dani making her way to Bly. While the story will lead Dani to darker places, Dani will never lose her sense of agency and her sweet American disposition. Right from the start, it seems pretty clear that Dani is a perfect fit at Bly Manor. She is awestruck by the natural splendor of the English countryside and is quite taken with the beauty of the manor itself. She is also warmly greeted by the children and the staff who live and work at Bly. Floral and Miles seem genuinely happy that she's there and welcome her presence almost giddily. Dani also establishes friendly relations with Hannah Gross and Owen Sharman almost right away. The first night at Bly passes quite uneventfully. The next day, however, Dani is introduced to the gardener. The gardener is a woman named Jamie, and their meeting will forever change Dani. Jamie and Dani meet quite strangely, by which I mean so casually to the point of being strange. Jamie does not immediately acknowledge that Dani is even there, going on her day like usual. So casually, in fact, that everyone had assumed that they've already met, and Dani herself also felt similarly, a closeness that was somehow present with a perfect stranger. This relationship will become the most significant relationship Dani will ever have with another person. All seems perfectly splendid until Dani's second night at Bly Manor. The children begin to act quite strangely, beyond their usual idiosyncrasies. This culminates in Flora and Miles locking Dani in a closet and refusing to let her out. Dani is in a panic and is quite distressed when she finds that she is stuck in the confined space. Worse yet, there is a mirror in the corner of the closet. The bespectacled visage of the strange man watches her through the mirror. She hurries and tries to cover it up the best way she can. After an indeterminate amount of time, she's finally let out of the closet. She is of course very upset with the children, but is able to rein in her emotions. The children try to apologize, but she sends them to bed. She also notices strange, wet, muddy footprints all around the house. She assumes that the children had locked her in the closet and went outside for a walk. The next day, Dani confronts the children on their behavior. Miles tries to explain it away, saying that the door got stuck. Dani replies that she forgives them, but she does not believe them. Flora walks over to grab one of her strange talismans, the one of the lady with the long black hair. Before she can say anything, Miles snatches it away and tosses it down the laundry chute. As punishment, Dani makes him mop up the muddy footprints. Here we see Dani as a caretaker. She's kind and understanding. She easily forgives the children, even though they put her through something quite distressing. Yet she's also firm and blunt in telling them outright that she knows that they are lying to her. She also punishes Miles, showing that she's not a passive person and will discipline them if they need it, much to the approval of Hannah. Also, she gets the children to work in the garden. While this doesn't please Hannah too much, it does get Jamie's approval, who agrees that a bit of hard work is good for Flora and Miles. When a curious Flora rummages through Dani's belongings, she finds a pair of glasses with cracked lens. This appears to be the glasses that the strange bespectacled ghost was wearing. Upon walking in to find Flora with the glasses, Dani becomes visibly distraught. She tries to keep her composure and excuses herself, but as soon as she's out of sight, Dani completely loses any sense of calm. She's clearly agitated and seems to be suffering from an anxiety attack. As she makes her way outside, she completely breaks down into tears and starts to hyperventilate. Luckily for Dani, Jamie was walking by. Jamie stops and tries to calm her down with a joke, and reassures Dani that she's doing okay. Jamie's presence alone seems to have a positive calming effect on Dani, and she is able to regain control of herself. It is clear that this object, this pair of broken glasses, has great significance to Dani. This significance is revealed in episode 4, The Way It Came. The scene opens with a young Dani sitting in bed with a boy. He has just gotten new glasses, and Dani asks him, "So you have to wear it forever now? Forever until you die?" This is a dark foreshadowing of his grim fate. The two seem to be close childhood friends. The scene ends and cuts to them as grown-ups. They're together and are engaged to be married. They're celebrating with family and friends. While Eddie seems completely in love and ecstatic, there are shots of Dani looking contemplative and anxious. Dani even gets along well with Eddie's family. His mother clearly adores her and even offers her own wedding gown for Dani to wear on her own special day. All seems picture perfect, from the sweet childhood sweethearts to happily ever after. But trouble is brewing, and Dani has been keeping a big secret from everyone. Something she has been denying even to herself. As the excitement and preparation ramps up for Dani's big day, Dani begins to panic. During a romantic dinner, Dani confesses to Eddie that she does not want to go through with the marriage. The two continue the conversation in the car. Dani tries to apologize to Eddie, but he is understandably too upset to hear her out. Eddie becomes more and more frustrated with Dani, and in an attempt to get away from her, he gets out of the car abruptly. A passing delivery truck hits him, and Eddie is killed. Before he is killed, the oncoming headlights from the truck reflect off of Eddie's glasses, explaining Dani's ghost. Here we see Eddie as the proverbial deer in the headlights. He's blindsided by Dani's revelation that she does not want to marry him, and then he is literally blinded by the truck's headlights before he's struck and killed. Stricken by grief and guilt, Dani shuts herself away from the world. She stops answering calls and becomes a bit of a recluse. One day, Judy O'Mara, who is Eddie's mother, stops by to check up on Dani. Dani is caught off guard and is obviously uncomfortable with the situation. But Judy tells Dani that she's still important to the O'Maras and that they care and love her. Judy offers Eddie's glasses to Dani as a keepsake. Judy explains that she cannot bring herself to keep the glasses due to her grief, but she cannot also bring herself to throw them away. Judy offers Dani a hug, and things seem like they might be looking up. But Dani sees a taxi cab pull up in the distance. She abruptly bids farewell to Judy, and it is revealed that she has packed up all her bags and is ready to head off to England, which leads to the events seen at the beginning of the show. Here we see Dani trying to desperately run away from personal problems, and it seems to be a constant source of unhappiness for her. When she agreed to marry Eddie, she did so because she did not want to hurt his feelings. Then again, when confronted with the guilt of Eddie's death, she packs up her life and abruptly moves to England alone. Dani is a guilt-ridden person, and the guilt eats at her, but she does not have the strength or the coping mechanism to deal with her issues in a positive manner. Her stress and guilt manifests itself in her nervous energy and triggers her anxiety attacks. Eddie still haunts her as a shadowy form with his bright glowing glasses. But I believe Edmund's or Eddie's ghost is a pure manifestation of Dani's own guilt. Eddie appears in the mirror watching Dani multiple times throughout the show. She is extremely distressed by seeing him. We see her frantically trying to cover up the mirrors. But I think his appearance in the mirror is there because she's terrified at looking at herself. She feels guilty for what she did to Eddie, and she feels like his death was her fault. She avoids mirrors, reflections, and glasses. Symbolically, these are things of self-reflection, truth, and the unconscious mind. During the bonfire scene, the staff at Bly Manor gathers together after Owen's mother's funeral. They are drinking and relaxing by the fire when Jamie starts to talk about how in the olden days people used to build giant bonfires and reminisce on those they've lost. They would also burn offerings to drive evil spirits away. Old bones were especially used, hence the name bonfire or bonefire. She says, "Build a pile of old bones and burn away the shadows, because from here on in, the shadows get deeper, the nights get longer, we're heading into the dark, and we have to hang on to each other, so we can only carry so much." Everyone offers a toast in remembrance to the dead, but Dani declines when it comes to her turn. However, Dani does return to the bonfire after everyone has left, where she throws Edmund's glasses into the fire. As the glasses are destroyed, Edmund's ghost returns. He stands close, watching her in silence, almost like destroying the glasses has summoned him. Now it seems like he can appear or exist outside of the mirrors and reflections. I think this really just symbolizes Dani's first step into coming face to face with her past. She's no longer hiding from the mirrors and reflections. She destroys Edmund's glasses and is no longer willing to cling to the object that brings her such distress. Instead of the reflections, she chooses to confront him face to face. In this bonfire scene, we see Dani in a calm state. She's obviously inebriated, but she holds her composure and stands her ground against Eddie's appearance. She even speaks to him, saying, "It's just you and me then, This would mark Dani's path to self-acceptance, forgiveness, and healing. She's trying to leave the baggage of her past behind and face her demons face to face. It is clear that Jamie's introduction to the story is significant for Dani, and that the two women share a deep connection. Jamie is able to calm Dani during Dani's anxiety attacks, and even has a nickname for her, calling her Poppins in reference to Mary Poppins. Jamie views Dani in a similar light to the iconic nanny, seeing Dani as someone who can help mend the children and bring joy to them again. There's a lot of chemistry between the two women, and in episode 3, Dani makes it a little more clear how she feels a lot more than just platonic friendship to Jamie. As Jamie is leaving Bly, Dani reaches out for her hand, leaving Jamie perplexed, saying, "Who the hell knew?" Right after this, Edmund appears to scare Dani. Here I believe he appears out of the reflection because she's no longer hiding her sexuality and no longer denying her attraction to Jamie. So he symbolically shows up to haunt her as a manifestation of her past and guilt, no longer relegated to the reflection, but confronting her face to face due to her actions. In episode 4, The Way They Came, after the bonfire, the two women meet in the greenhouse and have a moment alone. Dani has a more candid and truthful talk with Jamie about her past, and even confesses to seeing Eddie, something that she has never told anyone. As Jamie is trying to confront Dani, Dani suddenly kisses her. The two are passionately sharing a kiss when Eddie suddenly appears and interrupts them. Dani breaks off the kiss and the moment is ruined. As Jamie leaves, it is clear that she is hurt and confused. It is obvious that Dani still feels guilt and shame over Eddie's tragic death and is still having issues coming to terms with her own sexuality. In episode 6, The Jolly Corner, Dani wakes up early trying to catch Jamie in the greenhouse again. She brings Jamie coffee, and while it is horrible, it works as an icebreaker. The two fall back into flirty banter, and it is clear that Dani wants something more with Jamie. Jamie is hesitant that Dani might pull away again, but Dani asks Jamie if they could go out to get a drink at a pub. Jamie, of course, lives above a pub, and Dani knows this, so it is clear that there is insinuation of taking their relationship further, and they both seem happy with that prospect. Later that night, Jamie takes Dani deep into the woods to show Dani a secret area that she has kept for herself. There, Jamie has been growing moonflowers. Jamie goes into a monologue, talking about how exhaustive it is to grow moonflowers, and how its beauty is so fleeting. She compares it to how she feels about people. She finds that people are exhausting and not worth the effort. She tells Dani about her rough childhood and how she had to serve time in prison. There, she found a love for gardening. She tells Dani that gardening makes sense to her because if you pour love, effort, and time into them, plants will grow. She tells Dani that while this moonflower will die, it is natural and death can be beautiful because out of death will come more life. Jamie tells Dani that Dani cannot control who lives and who dies, and that death is natural for everyone. Like a moonflower, life is fleeting, but it can also be beautiful and be worth the effort. Dani is touched by Jamie's words, and the two kiss and spend the night together. Significantly, this may be Dani's first time sexually with a woman, and may be the first time she got to fully explore her sexuality and attraction to another woman. Dani wakes up in the morning, and as she looks at herself in the mirror, Eddie is no longer there to haunt her. He will actually no longer appear throughout the show's run. Also, significantly, it is mentioned that this is the first time that Dani has slept through the night, and that this had been the most restful night she might have ever had. I think this is because Dani's guilt is no longer with her, and she's finally able to let go and fully embrace her relationship with Jamie. She no longer needs Eddie to haunt her and punish her. Throughout the show, Dani gets glimpses and close encounters with the ghosts of Bly Manor. Mainly, she sees Peter Quint leering at her here and there. This understandably scares her, but she's under the impression that he's a real person who is stalking the house. She doesn't realize that he's a ghost, or that there are other ghosts trapped at Bly. It isn't really revealed until episode 6, The Jolly Corner. When Flora begins to act strangely, Dani is extremely concerned and tries to reach out to Lord Wingrave for help. She tries to keep a close watch, but when she checks in on Flora, only to find the spirit of the late Miss Jessel sitting on the bed talking to her, Dani is terrified. She is able to get a hold of Flora, but as she's trying to get to Miles, Peter Quint appears in the hallway. Flora then suddenly runs away to the attic, and Dani follows her, only to be led into a trap. Dani is knocked unconscious by Miles, and is bound and gagged in the attic. Here it is revealed that the ghosts of Peter Quint and Rebecca Jessel have been haunting Bly Manor the whole time. The strange behaviors of the children were in fact a direct result of these hauntings. They have also been possessing the children in an attempt to escape from Bly Manor. Luckily for Dani, however, Rebecca Jessel ultimately decides against possessing the children, and working with Flora, the two free Dani. Dani is able to get outside of the house with Flora, but they are interrupted when the lady in the lake, Viola, grabs Dani by the throat and chokes Dani, dragging her back into the house. Helpless, Dani can only try to hang on to Viola as she is dragged up the stairs and into the master bedroom. As Viola is transfixed with her usual routine, Flora jumps onto the bed to get her attention. This works, and Viola releases Dani, who collapses to the ground. Viola picks up Flora and leaves to return to the lake. Dani chases after Viola, as she's still struggling to breathe after being choked for so long. In an act of desperation to save Flora from being drowned, Dani tells Viola, "It's you, it's me, it's us." It isn't clear what made Dani say this phrase, but it seems to come from a deep instinct that she felt. Something that the narrator says Dani felt in her bones. Almost like an old knowledge from the olden days, perhaps referring to the superstitious belief of those who've lived in the olden days and the days of the bonfires. This phrase has been exchanged between multiple characters throughout the show. It acts almost as an incantation and an invitation for spirits to possess a body. Dani cannot know how profound this moment will be. She's only concerned with saving Flora in this very moment. This act will save not only Flora, but all those who have been trapped on the grounds of Bly Manor. But it is a sacrifice that will come with great cost. Dani invites Viola into herself, almost as a passenger in her own body. This is visually seen when Dani's left eye changes from her natural blue to a brown. Dani is able to rescue Flora and Miles, and she will be able to leave Bly Manor with Jamie. However, Viola will be leaving with them. Dani knows her time is limited. She feels Viola's presence stalking her in her mind, silently watching her, comparing Viola to a beast in the jungle. Jamie tries to comfort her and says that they'll take it one day at a time. The two decide to leave together, despite Viola's inexorable influence over Dani. Jamie and Dani start a beautiful life together in Vermont. They open a flower shop and live a quiet but seemingly fulfilling life together. After a full year, Jamie professes her love to Dani with a moonflower. All seems well, but one day, after years together, Dani starts to see Viola's reflection as her own. Dani becomes scared but resolute, knowing her time is limited. She wants to spend the rest of her time with Jamie, so she proposes to Jamie, and while the two cannot technically get married, they live their remaining lives as a couple. Dani starts to see Viola more and more, especially in the reflections of water. She grows more and more distressed. Dani's breaking point comes when she has a dream of her lying in water. Jamie is seen hovering above the water, checking up on her, when suddenly Dani lunges for Jamie and pulls her into the water to drown her. She wakes from the vision to find that her hand is hovering over Jamie's throat. Fearing that she will hurt Jamie, and knowing that Viola is inevitably going to take over her body very soon, Dani leaves for Bly, leaving Jamie behind, not willing to risk Jamie's safety. She leaves Jamie a note, who finds it when she wakes. Upon reading it, Jamie tries to find Dani, traveling back to Bly Manor. She goes to the lake and dives into the waters, finding Dani has already drowned and has become the lady in the lake. Jamie pleads with the lady in the lake to take her too, willing the words Dani had used so many years ago. It's you, it's me, it's us. But this time, it was refused. While Jamie was willing, the entity known now as the Lady in the Lake is now very different. Viola and Dani share this being, and Dani would never harm Jamie, her most special person. In fact, no one would ever be harmed by the Lady in the Lake ever again, ultimately breaking Viola's curse over Bly Manor. In the final scenes of the series, it is revealed that the narrator has been Jamie all along. Jamie concludes that Dani is now the Lady in the Lake, and will slowly lose her memories and become a harmless spirit that will walk the grounds of Bly Manor. She believes that Dani will suffer the same fate as Viola, forever trapped in Bly Manor's gravity. In the closing shots of the show, we can see Jamie still longing for Dani and looking for her in reflections of water. She also leaves her door ajar at night in hopes that Dani might come back to her. Unbeknownst to Jamie, however, Dani has been silently watching her all along. The final shot of the show is Dani's hand resting on Jamie's shoulder, revealing that she is not bound to Bly as Jamie believes. Dani is in fact free to roam the world, but it seems she chooses to watch and follow Jamie silently. Jamie is now her gravity. Dani does not ever want to bring harm to Jamie, and revealing herself to Jamie would make Jamie want to kill herself, similar to what happened at the lake when Jamie tried to invite the lady in the lake into herself. This is a great juxtaposition when compared to Rebecca Jessel's and Peter Quint's relationship, or Viola's relationship with her family. In those stories, we see a lot of jealousy, selfishness, deceit, and a need to dominate. With Dani and Jamie, we see a different type of love, a love that is built on selflessness and devotion for one another. Ultimately, Dani's story is about redemption, love, and sacrifice. As stated by the adult Flora near the end of the series, Flora says that this isn't a ghost story at all. It's a love story. That is very true for Dani's main story arc. It is a story of coming to terms with herself, falling in love, and sacrificing herself to save those she cares about. The guilt that Dani carried over Eddie's death leaves her a broken and scared woman. But a chance meeting with Jamie offers her the opportunity for love, and she doesn't hesitate to seize it. She ultimately had to forgive herself and let Edmund go, and this allows her to live again. Dani also shows a lot of agency and bravery in her story. She tries her best to care for the children, but when they are in danger, she is always actively trying to confront the issue and the danger. This is seen multiple times throughout the show. When she believed that Peter Quint is stalking the grounds, she actively pursues him to confront him. While this is quite stupid, it shows how brave she can be when she feels that people who are vulnerable are threatened. This culminates to her chasing Viola, who just moments before had nearly choked her to death. She sacrifices herself to Viola to save Flora, and in doing so, she unknowingly saves all the unfortunate souls trapped at Bly, including her friend, Hannah. After the events of Bly, Dani gets 10 years of bliss with Jamie. But when Viola's presence would no longer lay dormant, and she feels Viola wanting to hurt Jamie, Dani makes a difficult choice of leaving Jamie behind to protect her. She goes to Bly alone and has Viola take over, leading to her own drowning. Now, as tragic as that fate is, I believe that Dani's selflessness ultimately breaks Viola's curse over Bly once and for all. Jamie believes that Dani is now stuck at Bly, becoming the Lady of the Lake, but this does not seem to be the case. As stated before, the last shot shows Dani's hand lingering on Jamie's shoulder, showing that Dani's spirit is not trapped at Bly at all. She is able to roam free. She just chooses not to show herself to Jamie. She does so out of love, so that Jamie will choose to live. Dani's story is a direct contrast with Viola's story. Viola loves her family and Bly, but she always prioritizes herself above everyone else. Even after her death, she causes unending torment and grief to those unfortunate enough to die at Bly Manor, trapping their spirits in the gravity that she'd willed into existence through sheer force and self-determination. Dani does the opposite. Dani prioritizes others over her own needs, and I believe that this is what breaks Viola's curse. Two opposite types of love and forces that comes together at Bly and is nullified. I believe now that Dani's gravity is actually Jamie, and she will follow Jamie till Jamie's death. Until then, Dani will remain silent and harmless, allowing Jamie to live her life as best as she can. Hopefully, like Jamie's moonflowers, maybe more life can come after death.